An avid cyclist dreams of turning his passion into a business. He consults his banker to help find the best path. Now bike wheels are being built, and all it took was a little push to get rolling. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint.
Really looks like so much fun. The same way that the first one was fun with the big fight scene on the Thomas train track and, Thomas the Tank Engine track and stuff like that.
Spoilers, holy cow.
Oh, come on, man. It's been 2.5 years.
Welcome to this podcast, episode 22. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I'm sitting in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And we also have Jonathan Kuline over there in Mississauga.
What? How's it going?
All righty then. So let's start our show with some fact check from last week's episode, if you can. Jonathan, take it away.
Our fact check, 12:45 of last episode. So more than 64,000 people as of, yesterday, I think, have signed the petition to bring back Dark Matter for season 4.
Woohoo!
There are just over 4,000 signatures to bring back The Inhumans on ABC.
Really?
So you were looking for support for your pick. I think you definitely got it there.
Well, I mean, the reality is they've already struck the sets and taken apart stuff, and cause it's filmed here in Toronto, yep. Dark Matter, and I mean it's a long shot. I think we'll probably get the Dark Matter movie in a few years, direct to Netflix or whatever. But I have faint hope for that one, so I really don't think the Inhumans is going to get much traction, right?
Yeah, I think that might be a testament to how quickly that one's going to disappear, but
yeah, for sure.
23 last episode, Netflix broke the 100 billion mark in market capitalization, as we discussed earlier in January, and you guys were asking about Apple's market capitalization, currently at about $862 billion.
So clearly Tim Cook is shaking in his boots with Netflix is coming up behind him, eh?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not so much.
I mean, Netflix at least joined the triple B club, I guess, if that's a thing they call it, and they're at least in the same order of magnitude as Apple. Although Apple is close to getting to the $1 trillion and going up in order of magnitude.
Yep. I think it'd be interesting to see those two on a chart, though, because I mean, if you look at them at their capitalization by years of existence, that's pretty impressive.
Oh, come on, that's not fair. Apple's only been around a long time.
Well, yeah. So again, good for Netflix, great for Apple. So 25-28. I mentioned that Cloverfield 3, there was a rumor that they could be in talks to sell that movie to Netflix. So I did look that up, and so there's an article from The Hollywood Reporter. Apparently, as Paramount has, so let's see. Sources say it is unclear if a deal to sell Cloverfield 3 to Netflix will happen, but it does say that this is on the heels of the deal that saw Annihilation, which is a movie we talked about in our 2018 movie preview. That one was a Paramount film, and apparently the studio is looking at movies that they think will not do as well in the theater as they might do elsewhere. So that's why they're selling off these rights, and Cloverfield may fit that bill. So it has not happened yet. This rumor has been on the internet for about a week and a half, so it may still come to pass or it may not, but it'd be an interesting sort of trend to see these movies going to that market, because they don't think they're going to get their money back if they put them out in the movie theater. So
right.
And 40-25, Jason Isaacs played Captain Hook in the 2003 film version of Peter Pan. As you guys surmised, he was a Captain Hook at some point.
So who does he look like? Because when he first was on the scene, I wouldn't have been able to pinpoint who he was until, of course, the Harry Potter things. But does he look like Timothy Dalton? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yeah,
maybe?
Yeah, I would say
I could see that.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I get confused. I was confused about him in his early career about which guy was which. So thankfully he survived and the other guy's gone away.
Aren't all British people related to one another? Isn't that a thing?
Yes, I don't know.
And last note, Tim, you had mentioned Donald Sutherland being in a Heinlein movie.
Canada's Own.
He was in The Puppet Masters in 1994, based on a book from 1951.
Yeah, which I think is interesting because it's about secret aliens that, battle in parasitic invaders from outer space. So he was also in Invasion of the Body Snatchers many, many years before that.
Yep.
But it sounds a lot like, this little synopsis sounds a lot like the X-Files,
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were sort of FBI kind of people or whatever. It was an okay movie. The book was way better. But yeah, typical.
This guy's going to say, Heinlein. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Surprising.
That scans.
All right. So let's move into some follow-up. So you've got some tidbits, I guess, is what we should call this section because it's not really follow-up.
Yeah, it's sort of...
per se.
Yeah, news for people who love the stuff we love.
Yep, so give her...
All right, so, this Sunday is the Super Bowl. I personally couldn't care much less about that, but the good news is, if you're not a sports fan, there's still reason to tune in because we're going to get some trailers for some of our big blockbuster movies that we're looking forward to. Yes.
Who are you kidding?
We are. We're going to get some trailers.
We don't get to see those in the broadcast in Canada.
Well, all right. Well, that's a different problem. We'll get them a week later on Netflix.
We get them online the next day.
Yeah, we'll get them a week later on Netflix. Thank you very much. So we've got confirmation that we're going to see a trailer for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, or a commercial. I mean, I guess it'd be a commercial, we'll call them, because they're a little shorter. We're going to see one for the new Mission Impossible movie, Fallout, which I couldn't care less about, but I know you guys are fans. And there's a rumor that we might see our first trailer for Solo, a Star Wars story, with a mere 4 months to go until its release. They still have not released any trailers, commercials, or otherwise. So it'll be interesting to see if that proves true. This Hollywood Reporter was reporting this today, that we're going to see the trailer there. We also might see trailers for new commercials for Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, or Wrinkle in Time. And there's a possibility we might see Deadpool 2. So again, football, we'll see, but sounds like we're going to get some little tastes of what we're going to see in the blockbuster season this year.
Right.
Yeah, the Solo one I think is particularly needed because the fan base, if the interwebs are any indication, is really, really nervous because usually by now we would have seen at least like a teaser trailer. And if you're going to wait until this point, the Super Bowl, just given its time frame, is a pretty good time frame if you're going to go all out and spend big bucks and get a ton of people excited about what you've got to show.
Yeah, they really haven't done a good job of alleviating the fears that people have of, they changed the directors, they've, apparently gone back and refilmed things, they've changed some actors, holding out until 4 months before the movie comes out on a troubled production does not speak well. So I think every one of us who is a fan of that franchise are all sort of got a little eyebrow raise on that one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I mean, this is what we expect from Disney, like in terms of, they're gonna like milk everything they can, they're gonna have, a movie about every character ever known, ever seen in any sort of edge case of Star Wars over time, right?
Well, we talked about it in our 2018 movie preview episode that we, I'm a little dubious. I'm a little dubious about this one because, they put out a little synopsis a couple weeks ago and it basically read like exactly what every piece of fanfic that was written about Star Wars Han Solo backstory would be. He meets Lando Calrissian. He wins the Millennium Falcon. He meets Chewbacca. He does the Kessel Run. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I like Ron Howard. I like, Han Solo. Maybe it'll be a great movie. But so far, they haven't told me anything I didn't already know or anything that I want to see brought to life.
Yeah, it's like George Lucas with his checklist. They're standing there going, in the what's it, the Jedi one, Revenge of the Jedi? Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith, yeah.
Yeah, where he was standing, at the end of the last 20 minutes of the movie, he was just, checking off things. Okay, this is done. Okay, the kids are born. Okay, she dies. Okay,
Yeah. So let's see what else we got. Good news for fans of the TV show Happy. Happy's been renewed for season 2. We're going to get the season 1 finale this week, which is awesome.
Right. That's today, right?
Yeah, today. Yeah. I don't know if you're up to date, Tim, but it's awesome. It's disgusting. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I
just saw the last episode.
The last couple episodes have been just way over the top, but awesome. I can't wait to see what the finale brings, and I'm really excited they're bringing it back. Mm-hmm. Game of Thrones. So some Game of Thrones news broke last week when we got news. There was a story that seemed to indicate that we were going to get season 8, the final season of Game of Thrones, next April. There was an interview making its way around the interwebs with Maisie Williams, who apparently said that it was going to be coming out then. She has since ripped a huge hole in that story, said that is, quote, completely false. She said that was an old interview. She said that is not, in fact, what she said. And so we continue to wait for confirmation as to when we're actually going to see the final season of Game of Thrones. Sure. Still waiting. Valiant Comics, publishers of popular titles such as Exo Manowar and Ninjak, has been sold. Apparently, there's a company called DMG that had already owned it's DMG Entertainment. They had previously owned a large stake in the company. Now they bought it wholesale, and they intend to start making a series of blockbuster motion pictures based on these properties that have been around, some of them now 25 years. It was in the 90s that Valiant originally launched, or 89, I guess, originally launched. It was very popular in the 90s. So like I said, Exo Manowar, Bloodshot, Harbingers, Shadowman, Archer and Armstrong, Ninjak. And this company, DMG, they were involved in movies like movie Looper. So they have a little background in that world. So interesting. We might be getting a whole new comic book movie thing. I personally am interested because I want to see if they can start making better movies immediately with like these, no offense, Valiant fans, B-level superheroes compared to how bad the DC universe is flooded. I really like the idea that they could come up with a DC or a Valiant unified universe faster than DC could with like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So perhaps it's just my perverse sense of humor, but
yeah, I've never heard of any of those characters. No offense to anybody, but I kind of wonder like how much traction would those characters have? I guess it depends on trailers and things like that, right?
Yeah. I think Jonathan's being rather generous, calling it like B-level in terms of not quality but recognition, if I take it that way, where I think it would be easier to have like a cinematic film blockbuster sort of thing with like Robin as the main character, because you're only one step away from saying like, oh yeah, Batman psychic, oh yeah, Batman and Robin, that's right. Whereas Exo Manowar, I remember reading some of those comics, and it would be kind of hard pressed to have somebody be like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go see it because I'm a fan of the comic. So you're starting from kind of ground level, and if anything, it seems like if they could take the Deadpool template and not make a movie like that, but say, okay, we've got a character that you have to really, really, really be hardcore dedicated into in order to get recognition. And this isn't like people who have limited contact with the outside world and the Amazonian River would know Superman and Batman and that sort of thing. You're starting with we have to make a fundamentally good movie first, and also have it be with this branding. I think is probably their approach.
Yeah, but like Deadpool and Jessica Jones were sort of characters that I would never have heard of before. I may have heard of Deadpool before, but and they kind of took the world by storm when they came out, right?
Yeah.
So who knows?
But the message there is make good products. I think that's the thing that DC is kind of they're like, look at our huge, amazing heroes. Superman, Batman. Well, okay, but are you making quality products? Are you making?
Yeah, those aren't the Supermans that I know. That's not my Superman.
Yeah,
the one that's in the current iterations, or even last couple of iterations.
What Deadpool? They worked within a reasonable budget. They did a great job of really taking the genre of superhero films and putting a good twist on it. Same thing with shows like Jessica Jones. Again, they had a different type of story to tell. They got some good actors. They got some good filmmakers. They had a little bit more of a place to go with it, and of course it was better. We talked about the limitations of movies, but when you see things like Deadpool and Logan and some of the good movies we've seen over the last few years, you got to shake your head a little bit, and think, well, why wouldn't Valiant have a run at it if they can get good writers and good filmmakers and good actors together?
For sure.
So we had an interview on Vulture.com this last week with Kevin Feige. Of course, he is the architect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is quoted in this piece as saying that the X-Men and Fantastic Four, should the deal for Disney to acquire Fox go through, won't be in their sort of immediate plans to bring them into the Marvel U. He said the earliest...
Like Marvel U being Marvel University or Marvel...
Marvel Universe, the cinematic universe, so all the Iron Man, Avengers, all that stuff that we're familiar with. He says that the earliest we would see something, if that comes to pass, would be around 2019, 2020. So we're easily, a couple years away from that. And he said they haven't really made decisions because they're not thinking that far ahead. Personally, I don't believe that. I think they've completely thought about what they're going to do when they get these properties.
So have they ever met in comic books, the X-Men and the Avengers? Or?
They have historically and a few different times. Famously, there was a series just from a few years ago that was X-Men versus Avengers. It was a big crossover event that was quite popular and a good seller at the comic book shops. So I think there's a lot of interest in eventually bringing those together, although it is a matter of where do we find the Avengers after this huge event picture two-part thing they've got coming up, and who are the X-Men, because we're going to get one more X-Men film this year.
Right.
So when they do bring them together, it's not like, it's Hugh Jackman and, Robert Downey Jr. necessarily. We might not have any of those players in the mix 2 years from now. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Some sad news.
Should we do the countdown, though?
Pardon me?
5, 8,
oh, Lord.
3. Never mind. Okay, go ahead.
So, some sad news this week, particularly for fans like Tim. The voice actor from the Thunderbirds, Virgil Tracy, who played Virgil Tracy, his name is Jeremy Wilkins. He has died. He was 87. He was in a bunch of those, what's the polite term for puppets?
Marionation.
Marionation. He was in a bunch of the Marionation picture films, television shows from that area.
Filmed in Super Marionation, yeah.
Yes. Yes, Super Marionation, that's right. He played one of the Tracy brothers in the original Thunderbirds TV series.
He played the pilot of Thunderbird 2.
You got it. And he also played Captain Ochre, and Captain Black in Captain Scarlet and the Mysterions, and then had a bunch of other smaller roles. So one of those icons of that era of the Super Marionation.
British television.
Indeed, has passed. So sad news. We got news this week that Superman is getting another TV prequel series with Sci-Fi set to debut Krypton coming up in March. We got news that on the DC Comics forthcoming app that they have been touting for a while, that we're going to see a new series called Metropolis. Metropolis is set to be a new live-action series set pre-Superman in Metropolis. So we're going to get Krypton and Metropolis. It's going to be a weekly live-action series.
I thought Krypton was the name of the dog.
No, that's Krypto.
That's
Krypto.
Okay. Right.
And so apparently it's going to focus on Lex Luthor and Lois Lane as the primary characters. Again, I'm curious. I will perhaps keep an open mind, but I'm not sure how you sustain that. So this is going to be on their new digital service. They have already confirmed they're going to bring back Young Justice, and there's a few other projects that are going to go on there that people are looking forward to. Titans, they're doing a live-action Teen Titans series. So this is more content. So it sounds like this is actually going to be an interesting digital service, but I want to see more. They've contracted this to be a 13-episode series, so we shall see.
Very strange.
Yeah, apparently they're going to do something, I guess, kind of like Gotham, right? Where Gotham takes place before Batman is around. With, from what I read on this article, the bent that Metropolis, because Superman is eventually going to be there, timeline-wise, can play a little bit more with the science fiction side of things that Gotham doesn't do, that, you know, it focuses more on like the criminal underground sort of thing. And I guess that's what it'll be, because at first when I heard, oh, Metropolis, is like, what was it going to be? Like, oh no, like there's, you know, the
subway's jammed again.
Yeah. Traffic sucks and all these like normal day-to-day job sort of things.
Yeah, and this is where the concept starts to lose me, I think. It's like Supergirl without Supergirl in it, you know? Like, I don't know. We got news this week that Walking Dead co-creator Robert Kirkman is going to produce a new comic book film based on his project Birthright. So they're going to make that into a feature film. I have read Birthright. It is a good comic. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of that. The premise is basically that a little boy goes missing. A man shows up in their world a year later, claiming to be their son, who is now an adult. And so, you know, they have to sort of piece together whether or not this person is telling the truth and where he's been and how he could have become an adult. And so
there's a TV show about that. Like, there's another show like that on right now. I think it's going into second season. Same sort of idea. The kid disappears for a while, and wasn't it Flight of the Navigator like that too, or something like that?
Yeah, I seem to recall seeing a commercial for something similar in concept to that. So yeah. Again, I think you know, he's proven he can make good stuff, and he's got some cash behind him, and he's got some good ideas. So we shall see.
Sure. Is he connected to the Falling Waters one that they're replaying these days? Falling Skies, Falling Waters.
Falling Skies. I don't know.
They say they're brought to you by the people who brought you The Walking Dead.
Ooh,
what it says in the commercial.
I do not know.
But that could be anybody. That could be the guy who sweeps the floor at the sets of The Walking Dead.
Yeah. I will look into that one for next week's fact check. There you go. And we also got news this week that The Greatest American Hero is getting a reboot.
Really?
Yes. For those of you too young to remember, and that may include co-hosts of this show, Greatest American Hero was a 1980s television program starring William Catt, who played a teacher who discovers a super suit and puts it on, and when he does, he becomes this very unlikely hero who has to learn how to control his new abilities. It was probably most famous for a very catchy opening tune, which Tim will now sing for us.
I don't remember it.
Come on, man!
I blanked that one from my memory. It was such a horrible show.
Oh, believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Come on.
Oh, that one? No, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I know the song, but yeah.
Yeah, ran on ABC from 1981 to 1983. It was, again, it had this very famous song that was actually a radio hit as well. Apparently it's coming back, brought to life by the executive producer of Fresh Off the Boat, Nachka Khan, and is going to be starring a female lead this time, named Mira. I don't think that they've announced who that's going to be played by, but it'll be interesting to see if they can make a go of that. Again, it is an idea that I think can be rebooted. You know, anybody could be a hero. Here's, you know, you discover the suit and off you go. Although I think we've seen more than our fair share of the, you know, ingenue hero. How do I discover my powers? What do I do with them? Kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull that off. But female led, female produced. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We could use more of that on television. So off we go.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the famous story is William Catt was one of the people who auditioned for Luke Skywalker back in the day.
Yep. And he's gone on to have lots of roles. I mean, he's been a very successful character actor for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those shows that is just on the borderline for me, because I'm pretty close on age to being sort of just out of it. So what I remember about this is very, very little, but I think it must have been part of the same programming time block where it was like, you know, the reruns of the 1960s Batman with Adam West, and then the Linda Carter Wonder Woman, and then this show. And this show, from what I remember, didn't capture me as a young lad, which makes me guess that the superhero part probably doesn't show up as often as it does in the other shows. So it's kind of like where I remember big chunks of like Knight Rider or Airwolf, and guess what? I don't remember any of the adult parts that were probably boring to a young kid. It was like, oh, it's the car, or oh, it's the helicopter parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember he had some sort of mentor, another teacher or something that he used to go and consult with.
It was Bob Culp. It was Robert Culp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that was, again, I remember from when I was a young kid, again, anything with a guy at a cape and a super suit, I was on board for as a kid. So I watched it when I was just a little kid, with the rabbit ears and the staticky television coming from the United States. But it was enjoyable. Again, it was one of those first ones I remember where it sort of poked fun at the superhero genre. Batman, you could make an argument, was campy, and the 1966 Batman series was campy, and there was a little bit of camp to the Wonder Woman. But even at that point, comic book characters, they weren't into that late 80s grim and gritty yet, but they kind of took themselves, Superman was an earnest production. So that was one of the first ones where they were sort of poking fun at the tropes of superherodom. So
yeah, and the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, those are starting to end. They're sort of, I think $6 Million Man was over. This is probably around the time I was heading off to university, so I was out enjoying the nightlife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's your X-Files. That was my reason for not watching X-Files.
I guess, yeah. I think I had a better reason though.
Yeah, probably. And Tim, right. You got some news for us too?
Oh, I just wanted to ask you guys about this. I don't know if you'd heard this, but I saw a couple of tweets go by and rumors about Microsoft buying EA. Have you heard about that one? Electronic Arts?
I've seen it floating around a little bit, and everybody's kind of wondering how this would work, because Electronic Arts, EA, is well known for having a multi-platform strategy. So they'll make a big blockbuster, or they'll have their like yearly sports series like Madden for football or FIFA for the other football, and they just make tons of money from selling all there. So people were wondering, like, well, what would be the play here? Would it be to turn those into exclusives for Xbox and PC,
or just make money? Hello.
I mean, maybe, but you'd have to wonder, like, does it end up being less money in the calculus, or do you gain more because you draw more fans there? And I have no idea. It'd be interesting to see when this fully comes out, but it certainly seems a little bit more possible, considering that I think the quarterly results came out. I can't remember exactly how EA did, but one indication was that they were disappointed in the sales for Star Wars Battlefront 2, which we've mentioned on this show before regarding the loot box controversy. And that was where they sold like 6 or 7 million copies of that, I think. And they thought it was going to be more like 8 or 9, is I think the idea. And then, of course, the funding, or not the funding, the revenue loss from shutting off the loot boxes after the controversy. So if there's an opportunity for it to happen, it might be a good time if investors are getting nervous, and then here's the golden crusted arms of Microsoft coming to save the day. Maybe.
Yeah, so there have been a few stories. Forbes did a piece reporting when that rumor was out, and then also they wrote a piece the other day about how they think it would be a foolish acquisition, not a good fit. Business Insider has a good piece on why it makes sense from Microsoft's perspective, just because as Jaime said, you get franchises like Madden and FIFA, you get Need for Speed, so there are some potential exclusives they could do there. It's interesting because that comes out on the news today too, that the Nintendo Switch in 10 months has now outsold its predecessor, the Wii U, completely. It has completely sold more copies in 10 months than the Wii U did in its entire lifespan. So I think Xbox is struggling and it's looking for ways to refresh. It was trailing PS4 previously in sales. Now it is the third selling product on the market. Yeah. So we're now seeing some changing on the playing field of the powers here. So maybe they're just looking for something that will shake it up. The other rumor is that they may be looking at Valve as a purchase possibility. A Valve behind Steam, which is a hugely, massively important online gaming portal for PC gamers.
Yeah, and geographically convenient because Microsoft is headquartered in Redmond, Washington, and Valve is in Bellevue, which is on the same road. It's Bell Red Road that connects the two. It's the most convenient one. So I don't know if that tips the scales for them, but I'm sure it's at least a consideration in terms of the amount of trust you can get, because you can go have beer or coffee with folks behind the scenes and see what's going on.
So my question for you guys are both way more sort of in this tech, space than I am. What's more likely to happen? Microsoft buying EA or Valve, or Apple buying Netflix? Because those have both both been out there for a little while.
Yeah, see, Apple and Netflix, I don't know that Apple's looking for that. I mean, there's been rumors about Apple doing something with TV for a long, long time, but I don't think that's the play, because, I mean, Netflix is doing quite well.
But there is the factor, because of the new changes in the U.S. tax code, Apple is going to be able to bring all of its international money back into the United States. So the rumor is they're going to have about $250 billion in liquid cash.
So wait a minute, the new law allows Apple to bring that much money back in?
Yes, one time. They have a one.
They always could bring in the money. It's not like they were prevented. It was more like, why would you do this? You take a huge tax,
of course,
taxation on it, and now it's at a massively reduced price.
Yeah, so they would certainly still get taxed on it, but it's a fraction of what they were going to do previously.
Right.
So the rumor is they're going to do that because it's the one time they can reinfuse that, but then they're going to have so much liquid asset that they may be looking to make a large purchase, and they were looking around at potential fits and buying something like Netflix wholesale and making that the Apple branded content provider might make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wonder, like, is Netflix even up for sale or even potentially for sale? That's, I guess, the question, right?
Well, if your company's worth $100 billion and somebody offers you $200 billion,
I mean, you throw down crazy money, anything's for sale, right?
And Netflix is a publicly traded company also. So, I mean, it's really just a matter of getting the votes.
So for me, I think Netflix stock now.
I think you could put your money in worse places.
Yeah, for sure.
So to answer your question, I think it's more likely that Microsoft would buy EA or Valve, just because I think they're in a position of, or more likely to be in a position of panic or
also more likely to make a dumb move. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they might dump money, even though I think that it makes more sense to me for Apple to purchase a Netflix and acquire a lot of expertise that it currently doesn't have, but that it is trying to build itself.
Yeah. Or Microsoft could make the Zune pod.
So many jokes, my brain just overloaded. I couldn't get them all out. My brain just hit a log jam. So many Zune jokes.
Comes in brown and brown.
Right? Like, why did they choose that color? It's like somebody knew. It's like, I'm captain of this sinking ship. They made me do this. I didn't want to do it. This is going to be my passive aggressive way of, giving them the bird and telling them what I think.
Mm-hmm.
And to that man, we raise a glass.
Yeah, or a bucket. All right, so let's move on to the main part of the show, which is why we're here, which is talking about Star Trek Discovery. This time we're talking about episode 13. This is your spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the episode called What's Past is Prologue, episode 13, which just aired last weekend, which was sometime late January, 20-something, 29, 27, somewhere around there. And 28th. Yeah, it's Jonathan's turn to 28?
I'm looking at a calendar. It would be the 28th.
All right. So
there is no time in podcast land.
That's true. That's why, saying what time we're recording this at is kind of redundant, because you could be listening to this 6 months from now. Yeah, we see you, sir, listening to it 6 months from now. We know you're trying to catch up. It's okay. Don't worry.
If you can find a way to send a message to the past, we'd like to know how solo a Star Wars story is. We could use some help here, kids.
For sure. Yep. All right, Jonathan. No putting off till. So I just sat back and watched this episode. It was like, what the hell?
Yep, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here, so we'll plow through. I think we all have some questions to be discussed about this one.
Oh, and I was right about one of them. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, well, feel free to chime in, guys. Here we go. So our episode opens with the return of Landry and the rest of Lorca's followers. We see him basically pulling them out of, I don't know if they were supposed to be in the torture chambers, the agony booths. But he basically, all the people that supported him that were still alive, he basically rescues them to form himself a little mini army inside of the Chiron, the flagship of the Emperor. Lorca then goes to Mirror Stamets' lab looking for said Mirror Stamets and finds him cowering behind an invisible shield. He explains that what his origin story was, which we were sort of speculating on, how did Mirror Lorca end end up in the Prime universe. He says that he was transporting simultaneously to being in an ion cloud, and that's what ended up landing him in the Prime universe. We still don't have details on where he showed up in the Prime universe or how that played out. If he swapped places with the Prime Lorca, so we might get some more there to unpack down the road. So meanwhile, on the bridge, Emperor Georgiou is scowly faced and looking nasty. Bernham is with her. Bernham decides that it's time to bail, so she escapes. She dives into were they called Jeffrey's tubes at that point? She dives into a crawl space and escapes the bridge. Meanwhile, back on Discovery, Stamets has failed to stop the mycelium from dying, so they've got this warehouse full of these spores. They do not know how they're going to get home. The poison that is inside the network is spreading, and we find out that the thing that is responsible for it is the super mycelial reactor aboard the Charon. It is now threatening the entire multiverse. Apparently, if it's allowed to continue sucking up the energy from the mycelia, it's not just sucking it up from the mirror universe, it's sucking it up from all universes that are connected. So it will wipe out all life should this go unchecked. So all of a sudden we have our dun dun dun, something's got to be done about this. Lorca, meanwhile, back on the Chiron, offers amnesty to all of the crew who are willing to defect to him. So he decides it's time to take action, and we have the shootout aboard the ISS Chiron. We've got Lorca and the Emperor, standing basically toe-to-toe, firing shots in a hallway, big action scene. It was pretty awesome. And in that, we discover that the Emperor has a little trick up her sleeve. She can do a site-to-site transport, so she realizes that she's outgunned. Mirror Stamets is helping Mirror Lorca and Mirror Landry, and so she has to bail, and all of her supporters get picked off. So she sort of finds herself on the run. So Burnham makes contact with the Discovery. They reveal that the mycelial reactor is going to destroy the multiverse. They make a plan for trying to find a way to get her to try and help drop the shields for the reactor so that they can actually try and take it out. So let's see, what was this right? Stamets confirms that Lorca messed with their jump. So as we suspected.
Yeah, good Stamets.
Yeah, so our Prime Stamets confirms that Lorca actually messed with their jump. So Burnham, when she contacts the Discovery, tells them that Lorca is from the mirror universe. Stamets says, of course, that makes perfect sense. I knew that I didn't screw it up. This was clearly put into play. So this was something that we had theorized about before, that Lorca was in fact actually trying to get them there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mirror Stamets does not last much longer. He gets marched over to the reactor. It looks like they're going to execute him by pushing him into the reactor. Instead, Mirror Landry puts a phaser to his back and disintegrates him. So in a couple episodes, we go from meeting Mirror Stamets to no more Mirror Stamets. There's our first big casualty of this episode. Lorca gets on the comms. He's trying to locate Burnham. She's alone on the ship. She's trying to figure out how she's going to get out of there, how she's going to be able to help the Discovery. He starts making these very creepy speech about how he wants her back and how, she should come stay with him. And Burnham ends up tracking down the Emperor because she knows Georgiou, so she figures out where she's going to be. And the two of them vow to stop Lorca. They put their heads together and try and form an alliance, which is kind of a weird twist, given we've seen the Emperor be really nasty and
try to kill her twice already.
yeah, vowed to kill her, and so that was kind of a weirdly fast turn. So back on the disco, Stamets and Tilly and Saru and Detmer in the group decide that the best way to stop the mycelial reactor on the Chiron is to load their mycelia onto their photon torpedoes to destroy the reactor. But then they also Tilly figures out that the blast wave that will be created by that explosion will kill them all. And Saru launches into this speech about how he doesn't believe in the no-win scenario and doing his best James T. Kirk, rant. He does his St. Crispin Day speech and says, "We shall overcome." And he's, rallies rallies them all. They decide to heck with it. Even if we're going to die, we got to do this because otherwise the universes are going to die anyway. So we may as well just go for it. Burnham and the Emperor appear to be turning themselves in to Lorca. They make their way up to the throne room, or is the throne room and the bridge the same thing? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, maybe.
So they turn themselves into Lorca in the throne room. He's all feeling very proud of himself. He is now poised to become the new Emperor. She being Burnham offers to stay with him if he spares the Discovery. The Emperor vows to kill Lorca. Meanwhile, back on the Disco, Tilly and Stamets figure out how to ride the explosion of mycelial energy that they're going to trigger by destroying the reactor to kick their spore drive into gear and try and ride that wave back to their own universe. And this is our first indication that this is all coming to a head really fast. Discovery gets the signal from Burnham, drops out of warp. Burnham gives through the signal, and they target, instead of the reactor, they target the throne room. And this sets off a huge fight scene where we see Burnham and Landry going toe-to-toe, throwing down. We get the Emperor versus Lorca. There are people shooting at them while they're simultaneously fighting. It's actually a really, really fun, fast-moving scene. Michelle Yeoh as Emperor Georgiou is just supremely badass. At one point, somebody throws a knife at her and she kicks it out of the air. It's just awesome. So we see these people all going toe-to-toe. At one point, Lorca stabs Landry, probably by accident. Lorca actually beats Georgiou and is poised to win. Then Lorca and Burnham square off, and the two of them are going at it. Burnham actually wins that fight and then announces that because she's the better person, she's going to spare Lorca, at which point Georgiou runs him through with her Imperial sword and kicks him down into the reactor, where we see his skin fly off. Therefore, we assume killing him.
But then he's joined the mycelial network again.
All right, well, so that's a discussion for the end of this. So the Emperor, at that point, the Emperor sort of says, "I will hold off Lorca's followers. I am dead. The remainder of Lorca's followers have seen my neck," she says. And so she says, "I'll stay here. I'll hold them off, Burnham. You go back to your ship and get out of here." So as Burnham's teleporting out, she just at the last second reaches out and grabs the Emperor, and the two of them beam back to the Discovery. Discovery targets the reactor, destroys the Chiron, and as they planned, they surf through the regenerated network of mycelial network, and they ride that back to theoretically through the mycelial network. We have this scene where we see Stamets, who's trying to find his way through, and he can't, and then he remembers the sound of music and what Culber had told him inside the network, that he needed to follow the music. So he listens, he sees the clearing in the forest, and finds the right path and leads them back to their universe. Very curiously, in the aftermath of that, one of the mycelia drifts down and we see it land on Tilly. I'm not sure what we're supposed to make of that yet. We'll discuss. Yeah. Discovery, poof, shows back up in its own universe. They do a scan and they realize, they kind of overshot their goal. They're back in their universe, but they've also flown forward in time. So it's 9 months after they left. And so they decide to do a map, update their computers, resync their iTunes, and they realize that they are actually 9 months in the future, and that the Klingons appear to have conquered and won the war. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. They didn't use iCloud for backup. So it's interesting that maybe we'll talk about the sneak preview in a little bit, but yeah, that's where it ended. But of course, I have another memory in my mind because I just saw a sneak preview at the end of After Trek. You
and your After Trek, man.
I know, but there was lots of action going in this one, and I will have to go back and watch the fight scenes because I'm not a big fight scene fan, so I'll have to go back and watch because I missed the bit about her kicking the knife out of the air and all that stuff. But
I can't remember if it's her. Someone throws a knife and it hits Lorca and ends up in his shoulder. He yanks it out and then goes to throw it at her.
Right, I saw that part. Yeah,
she spins her leg up and kicks the knife out of midair, and it is just the most Michelle Yeoh moment. It's just man, she's such a great martial arts actor.
Yeah. The moment I also remember is I can't remember who was choking her from behind. fine, but she does the like kick my legs straight up and hit the person in the face.
Oh, so good.
See that in so many of her movies. It's so awesome.
So good. I mean, it seems a mildly out of place in that Star Trek universe where, you know, you get a lot of bad Jim Kirk fight scenes, but she is a tremendously badass woman. And
Burnham's got that Vulcan martial arts thing too.
Yeah. No, it was all the different dynamics and the bridge is on fire and Lorca's supporters are shooting at them. And so they have to, you know, dodge and evade and
there's a
fight
hole
them
to fall down into the pit where the reactor is. And
yeah, it's a good like 5-minute sequence in a very jam-packed episode. But really, really, really well done.
Yeah.
So the burning question, not the Burnham question, the burning question is Lorca dead?
Well, so here's the thing. Jason Isaacs was on After Trek, of course, and so I think you said that somebody said he'd signed up for 1 year. Did I hear
No,
that
I think we were talking about that as is he a one year wonder?
He did sign up for 1 year, but I think you said last week he had signed up for 1 year in his contract, but then again, he also said that I've been lying all the way through this, so you never know.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing.
Because they asked him on the show, so how did you manage to pull this off? And he says, I was sworn to secrecy, couldn't even tell his family what was going on and whatever, right? So very interesting. And we were kind of wondering whether you did miss one part, but we were wondering whether Michelle Yeoh was going to be in for one season or just for a few episodes, right? But just did you mention that just as they start transporting Burnham back to she grabs the Emperor, and then the Emperor says, "What have you done to me?" Because she ends up on the disco, right?
So we have I'm not sure how that one fits into the Prime Directive at that point, where you're supposed to pull people back from that, but well,
Burnham's been breaking the rules all along, right? So
so it's 9 months in the future. They've got the Mirror Emperor, Slaughterer of Worlds, 15 different nasty titles aboard the ship now. So what's the end game? 2 episodes to go. This felt weirdly premature. I don't know. Again, it was a great episode. It was really enjoyable. But it seemed like they were just tying up threads all over the place, which with 2 episodes to go kind of seemed, you know, we talked last week about how we kind of were enjoying the Mirror Universe, and a direct quote from you, sir. I listened to last week's episode just the other day, and you said, there's no way they get out of this in 3 episodes. They got out of it in 1 episode.
Yeah, but they're still in the thick of it. They're still in the thick. By the way, I just interject here for a second. Her Most Imperial Majesty, Mother of the Fatherland, Overlord of Vulcan, Dominus of Kronos, Regina Andor, Philippa Georgia, Augustus Alapanus Centaurus. All hail the Emperor.
Yikes.
It's quite the name. It's like a Game of Thrones style name.
Yeah, I made note of that.
I also was surprised that they moved along that this clip. I mean, I think just this very last episode, we were talking about, what do we think is going to happen? And I had a prediction that is completely wrong now about what the episode titles meant. And I thought for sure, given the way that they, like the kind of things that they did with that cliffhangery sort of moment of like, the Klingons have won the war, like that it feels like that if you took that scene, you know, out of context, it would feel like, that's a good cliffhanger for come see us in season 2, you know, 2019 sort of thing.
Yeah,
true.
Like it almost felt like the previous episode where we finally get the confirmation that Lorca is the Mirror Lorca, that it's all been building to that. That could have been where you ended a season. And then we get to the end of this episode and you think, that could have been a great cliffhanger to end of the season. How are they going to top that for 2 more episodes to where we really get to the end of the season?
Well, I mean, and the end of the first episode, I believe it was the first episode where they end up surrounded. Was it Discovery I'm thinking of now, maybe? Where they get surrounded by the Klingons. I guess it was the 3rd episode of this series, right? Because the first 2 were about Burnham and Giorgio, right?
Yep.
And just point of fact that Dark Matter, the cliffhanger at the end of season 4, is the same thing. They're surrounded by all the bad guys.
Yeah.
Cue the movie.
But we already know that Discovery's getting a 2nd season as opposed to season 5 of Dark Matter.
True.
So
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the trailer for the upcoming episode, and I'm going to look at the name of that. That is The War Without, The War Within.
Right.
The teaser I saw for that kind of walks back the statement a little bit of like, the Klingons won the war. I'm like, well, they've apparently occupied 20% of Federation territory, and things are really bad. And we see Sarek and Admiral Cornwell come in, and it looks like...
so you did see that teaser I was just talking about.
Yeah, it wasn't in... Well, I haven't seen After Trek, but it was like when I was streaming, it's like the last minute or so. Like, like next time on Discovery.
Yeah. I think
so. It kind of seems like that Georgiou is going to help them fight, and I wonder if that's revising my prediction here of like, oh, maybe the war without is the more straight up war with the Klingons, but the war within might be, hey, she's helping us win because she's teaching us how to fight dirty.
Yeah, maybe.
And we still, for the record, even though we didn't see him in this episode, we still have Laurel and Vokyler down in the brig somewhere.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
They kind of got lost in the shuffle of a jam-packed episode, but we never really got a conclusion as to, I think, Jaime, you had surmised that, that Volk was dead and Tyler was now the personality in the body, and we're sort of left to speculate what's going on there. I wonder if they're going to play a role in this last little stretch in trying to find a solution to the Klingon occupation.
Yeah, interesting. Just before you get into that, I don't know if you've noticed that the titles at the end of the show, they mentioned Mary Chefio as a guest appearance on at the end of that episode, the one before, and this one I think. They mentioned Rekha Sharma as a guest appearance on this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, she didn't last long on this one again, right?
Yeah, again. Welcome back. Oh, you're gone again. Again, I do like the way they have woven some of those in. We talked a few weeks ago about how they brought back the helmsman from the Shenzhou to come back and be the captain when the Shenzhou comes. Like, it's, there are so many of these ones where, it could just be any character and they could bring it back, but the way they're looping it all together is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I said a couple of weeks ago, are you really dead in the mirror universe, or can you be really dead?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like where's good Lorca? Where's Prime Lorca?
That's, I think, the big question is, will we see a Prime Lorca ever? Will we see a Prime Lorca this season? Mm-hmm. I thought, did one of you guys say that you had heard that we were going to see Mirror Culber?
Yes, yeah. They showed a costume design for his costume.
Because we never did.
No, we didn't. No. Interesting.
Was that more misdirection, do you think?
Perhaps, right? Because they couldn't give away, because he did say that in that episode, the actor, I forgot his name now, he did say that he had filmed what he thought was his best scene, and that was when we saw this week with him advising Prime Stamets, right?
Right.
In the mycelial network. And he's probably going to appear in the mycelial network whenever Stamets falls asleep and stuff like that,
Yeah.
That's a convenient little thing there, right?
Wilson Cruz, I think, is the
Wilson Cruz,
name you were fishing for.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like, okay, so I think there was a few things in this. So did they catch any, like, Jonathan, you're the guy, right? You're the barometer. Was there anything in this episode that you didn't expect to see? Like maybe the sword going through Lorca's chest, or?
Yeah, I kind of expected if they were going to, like, as I realized this was sort of coming to a head in a faster sense, you could tell from the pacing, within the first few, 15 minutes of the episode, you were like, oh, this is going somewhere fast, which was really weird because it's been a slow burn, and then it was just like, whoa, afterburners, here we go.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they would give him something more ambiguous, and I guess they did. The sword through the back looked pretty bad, as any sword through the back would. And, then, of course, Georgiou kicks him down into the mycelial reactor, and we see his skin burning off, which was a pretty graphic scene for Star Trek, I would say. You could make a plausible argument that, as you said, maybe he's absorbed into the mycelial network and could pop up again. But I kind of had a feeling that they would try and find a way that they could keep him in the back pocket, because Jason Isaacs is delightful. I mean, he's been chewing up the scenery and spitting it out a little bit, but he's clearly great in that role. He plays an excellent jackass. Like, he's a great villain. Like, he really is. So I kind of hoped that they would find a way to sort of keep him, wouldn't just outright butcher him, but I don't know, that looked pretty definitive.
Yeah, but you know what, in the spirit of mirror, I mean, we call it the mirror universe, which implies it's binary, right? But as I mentioned before, in Heinlein and in Rick and Morty and even on The Big Bang Theory, they talk about the fact that it's multiple universes.
Well,
right?
they actually used that term when they were talking about, when the Disco crew was talking about that in engineering. They used the phrase multiverse for the first time I can recall. And the reason that tweaks to me is because as a longtime comic book fan, the DC universe has long held to that multiverse concept. And they actually brought that into the television CW universe over the last few years in Flash and Supergirl are in different parallel universes.
Right, yeah.
This is the first time I can ever recall that phrase being uttered in Star Trek. They've talked about a mirror universe, but they've never really gotten into that idea of infinite universes, although I suppose we have the Kelvin timeline, so maybe. But it leaves the door open to, well, maybe there's another universe and another universe and another universe that we could see down the road. That would be interesting. Although I don't know how much more delightful you get than Captain Killy and some of the stuff that they were, like this is the deepest dive we've had into this universe. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I think answering the question of like, is Lorca really dead? I think they wrote themselves a way that he can come back because of the little green mycelial spore that goes into Cadet Tilly. Because it seems like they were setting her character up for a Counselor Troy moment where every season Counselor Troy was like space pregnant or space possessed. And so he doesn't need a contract for that. Right? It's like, all right, he's not going to show up until like, midway or maybe at the end of season 2. And we just need to pay him for like one episode sort of thing.
Yeah.
True.
But I don't even, I could just, Mary Wiseman has been a lot of fun. She's been probably my favorite actor and character in Tilly that I've enjoyed in the series so far, although I really like Doug Jones as Saru as well. But I would love to see her doing Jason Isaacs. I think that could be awesome fun. Doing her best, like smirking Jason Isaacs bad guy for an entire episode or two. Like that could be so much fun.
We also have to have back Harry Mudd too, right? So
I wonder if he's in the immediate offing. I don't think we'll see him again this season because it just seems very unlikely. But
so you haven't seen the sneak preview, but Jaime and I obviously have at different points. But so what happens? We think next anyway is that all of a sudden the Admiral beams onto the ship and points her phasers and with her team of guys, including Sarek, I believe, right, Jaime? And they're on the bridge and they're like, "Where's Lorca? Like, where is he?"
Well, yeah, because they were about ready to court-martial him when he used Stamets and disappeared, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So from their perspective, they've been looking for this outlaw. The Discovery is gone, and now it has come back. 9 months later.
Right.
I'm also kind of curious to see the relationship between Emperor or Mirror Giorgio and Saru, because from her perspective, it's like communicating with a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Like, why would she have any respect for this guy who's ostensibly the captain now?
Could I please?
I hadn't thought about that.
If when they meet next episode, she just says, "You look delicious," or just show me your ganglia.
I eat people like you for lunch.
Oh, please. Yeah.
That's funny. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I mean that's the part that we haven't really gotten into is we didn't get that sharing. Burnham doesn't reveal sort of what the fate of Mirror Saru and Kelpians in general has been.
Right.
She's kept that one to herself because she knows that Saru, who for the record is now Captain Saru.
Yeah.
He is full on the captain of that ship, so that'll be interesting too.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah,
indeed.
Well, there's going to be. I mean, what the role of Giorgio is going to be like. She has that sort of Karen universe attitude towards war, right? That's win at all costs kind of thing, which the Federation isn't really prepared for. And if they're fighting against the Klingons, they're going to need some weaponry. And then of course we've got Lorca and Tyler in the basement there, in the brig, who can come and advise on fighting against the Klingons too, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I guess it remains to be seen who came out of that little brain salad surgery that Laurel did, as to where that leaves them as far as their allegiances. If she realizes that, as Jaime surmised, that Voke, his personality is now gone, and that what remains is the personality of Ash Tyler in this now humanized Klingon body. Does that mean that she has nothing left to lose and she's all in with them?
Right. Well, we kind of thought that if they stayed in the mirror universe, that she would have joined the crew. But so now what happens? Now she's a prisoner of war, if you will, right? And a bargaining chip, I suppose. And Tyler now has a unique role in this war because of his innate Klingondom. He's always Klingon, as they like to say, right?
I wonder if he retains Voke's memories, because he was speaking Klingon, as Jaime, you pointed out last episode.
but in English, yeah.
He was speaking without Voke's voice. He was speaking the lines. So I wonder if he retains those memories.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really unclear, and I'll probably have to rewatch a lot of these episodes to see what they were doing, because it happens really fast in that episode, and it was really unclear to me as to what they were doing with their mental scooping thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
2 episodes.
So will you go back and watch them all again, or at some point?
I think I might do that during the the quieter part of the year, when we go into summer break sort of thing. We won't have as much.
Binging,
just binge through, episodes at a time, where I think as we talked about last episode, now that you know what was what they were intending, can you go back and see how they were hinting towards certain things?
Memento style, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's cool. I guess we can move on to our Picorama, right? So what do you got there, Jaime?
I have here the trailer for the new Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is the follow-up to Ant-Man, which came out a couple of years ago, I think. And I think if that movie was something we described as a heist movie, kind of a traditional heist movie, but with superheroes laid on top, this one, just judging from the trailer, feels like more of a chase movie, like like Terminator 2 are both big, long chase movies. They're running away from the bad guys.
Right.
That's sort of the sense we got here. And we get a chance to see, I forget the character's name, but we get to see the Wasp character come out, the daughter of
Hope Van Dyne.
So is that the actress's name?
Oh, Evangeline Lilly is the actress. Hope Van Dyne is the Wasp character.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So she's Pym's daughter. Okay, got it. And it looks good and fun. If you liked Ant-Man, I think you'll enjoy this one as well.
Yeah, it looks. The trailer looks like so much fun. The same way that the first one was fun with the big fight scene on the Thomas train track and Thomas the Tank Engine track and stuff like that.
Spoilers! Holy cow!
Oh, come on, man! It's been 2.5 years. We're there. It's on Netflix. Go on, you go. I mean, in the same way that it was heisty and fun and just had a tongue-in-cheek kind of tone to it. I think this one looks like it's got that same kind of how many silly things can we shrink and grow and play with that dynamic. It does. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a great summer enjoy movie, especially when Black Panther looks amazing, but it looks intense. Like, it doesn't look like it's a hoot and holler, and it's not Thor Ragnarok. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks intense.
Right. More dramatic for sure.
And I think the tone of Avengers, looks like the new Avengers movie is going to be an intense one too, Infinity War, because, the trailer looks really serious. Thanos is there, Infinity Gauntlet, probably casualties. So I think by the time we get to Ant-Man and the Wasp, we're all going to be like, can we not cry every time we watch this universe or grip the edges of our seats? I think it'll be a good palate cleanser.
Yeah, there's a scene from the trailer where Paul Rudd, Ant-Man's character, and Hank Pym, Michael Douglas, are talking. He's like, "What? You gave her suit wings and shooty thingies? Like, oh, I guess you didn't have that for my suit, huh?" He's like, "No, I did."
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, the first one, Paul Rudd's a great comedic actor, and he was actually pretty good as a leading man in an action flick. So, they're playing to both those strengths, and they seem to be having a good time. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a winner. I'm looking forward to it.
Right. What else we got there?
I got a couple things. Well, one, two, three. I'll do 3 things, but I'll keep them short. So there was a story from IO9 this week that there is a plan in place on Indiegogo to fund a documentary based on the life of the first African American in space, a guy named Guy Bluford. Very little known story about how this person was the groundbreaking in that he was first African American in space, and he published or he didn't publish. He wrote a memoir, but it has not been published. His story is little known. So there is this campaign on Indiegogo to try and to put this to film, to tell this man's story about where his place in history is. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. I must admit, I wasn't familiar with his story. There's a great story on IO9. I highly recommend you check it out. It's io9.gizmodo.com, written by Cheryl Eddy, and it sort of tells you a little bit of his backstory and has a interview with the person who started this campaign. And so, yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where this goes, because I'd like to see that story. Mm-hmm. I've also got one I'm not sure about, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, so I'm going to raise this one as not just a pick, but a discussion. So there's a new series that's premiering this week on Netflix called Altered Carbon. Have either of you seen the trailer for Altered Carbon yet?
No.
I have, and I thought, I don't know, we went through a period maybe a month or two ago where there were just so many different series being announced that I thought this might have been one of the ones we mentioned in like a slew of 5 others, where I thought, oh, it's kind of like Transcendence and Matrix-y and Surrogate-y, and I think this is the same one. I'd have to go back and listen to that episode to see if this is the one I was talking about.
Yeah, so the premise is basically it's supposed to be set in the distant future, sort of a cyberpunky kind of future. Human consciousness can be digitized and downloaded into different bodies, so it's got a little bit of surrogates, it's got a little bit of some sci-fi elements we're familiar with. So James Purfoy plays Lawrence Bancroft, who is brought back to life after 250 years, and so the idea is that then he has to try and figure out his own murder case in this far-flung future after being dead for 250 years. The trailer looks pretty cool. I'm not a crazy big cyberpunk fan, but the effects look pretty good. It's got some nice high production value, and I've read some positive things so far in the people who have had the sneak preview. It's creeping onto the radar. I think I might check out the first episode this weekend and see how that is.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, I want to check this one out too. I knew it was coming out on Netflix sometime in February, so it's good to hear that it's this weekend. Are they releasing all episodes at once, or are they doing a once a week sort of thing?
I believe it's all at once. This is a Netflix series, and so February 2nd, we're getting the drop. So I think we're getting all the episodes at once.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And my last little one is, I'm just going to keep ringing this bell till I get you guys on board, but The Good Place season 2 season finale is Thursday. So by the time this episode is up, the second season will be over. It is still brilliant. It is funny. It is smart. It is still my favorite show on television. It is smart sci-fi. It is funny sci-fi. It is accessible for every type of audience. The actors are amazing. The writing is amazing. I can't wait to see how they wrap up this second 14-episode season. You guys have to watch it. You just have to. It's so good. It's so much fun. They are going places with this concept that are constantly genre bending and fun and interesting. It is just such a great show. I cannot endorse it heartily enough.
Yeah, I think I saw that the first season is available on Netflix, so that'll make it easier to watch.
It's one of those ones. I think you guys will sit down and you will enjoy it. But if you make it through the first season, you will 100% want to watch the second season. There's just so much interesting stuff that happens that it just builds. And as you're watching it, it just keeps building. And by the time you get to the end of the first season, you're going to be like, I got to see season 2. It's so unlike what you'd expect from this is a network sitcom. This is an NBC show. But it's by Mike Schur, who, again, we talked about, just Parks and Rec. Very smart, very, very, very talented TV creator. And it's one of those ones where the cast gets their characters so fast. There is a great chemistry between all of them. It just comes together so fast, and it turns and twists. The characters get a lot of depth and definition very quickly. There's a lot of unexpected things that happen, but it's a mix of funny and melodramatic. It's just so much fun, and it's 22 minutes an episode. You can watch the whole season. It's 14 episodes. You watch the whole thing in like 5 hours. It's excellent, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've seen at least one episode of it, if not 2 or 1.5, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, the first episode is as a sort of a 2-parter. It's sort of meant to be sort of seen. When it premiered, it was an hour long, so they've split it into 2 episodes for Netflix. And that sort of sets the stage for sort of where the status quo is, and then we sort of start to unpack more about the different characters and some of the mysteries of what's going on in the Good Place, and it just keeps getting better and better, and I'm dying to find out how they wrap it up. It is, to give you an idea of sort of its broad spectrum, that is the only thing that all 4 members of my family will stop and watch when it's
really all 4. That's incredible.
Now, to get my 12-year-old to agree to watch anything with the family is next to impossible. So the fact that even he is on board, he has watched every episode. So has my 14-year-old, my wife, and myself. We have watched all of it, and now it is appointment watching. Like, we want to see it when it's on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you a couple of things that I've been watching. I've been watching Absentia, and I've seen 2 episodes of that so far, and it's got some sort of usual stuff, but they got some really weird twists in the plot, which I want to see where they go. Not super highly recommended, but it's an interesting show. But I have to say the X-Files has redeemed itself. The latest episode that just aired last week, this is one they're airing right now, but the one that aired last week was fun. It was a send up on the old Twilight Zone episodes, and it's twisty all the way through the whole show, and ends up being classic X-File, type of romp comedy through the X-Files, if you will, right? So pretty good.
Cool.
So like the first episode of the season, as I said before, was just abysmal, like horrible.
Yeah, you seem pretty despondent after that first episode.
It was like I was like, what were they thinking, right? And then the second episode was pretty good. It was typical kind of farce that they the kind of Mulder Scully farce that they go through. And then this last one was just sort of was funny. I don't want to give anything much away, but I'll tell you, it starts with an old black and white Twilight Zone type episode, and it goes on from there, right? So,
have either of you guys had a chance to check out Counterpart, the new Starz series?
No,
I haven't.
So I just got back. I actually spent the last few days in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is for those who might be listening from afar, is sort of Canada's tech hub. I was up doing a tech seminar for the last few days, and it was awesome. But what that meant was driving through the tundra, as Canada is. So I was in my car, and I've been listening to podcasts for hours and hours at a time. So J.K. Simmons was on the latest episode of the Bill Simmons podcast, no relation. And I love J.K. Simmons. He's one of my very favorite character actors, and a legit star. He's in this new series called Counterpart, which is, I'm going to flag that one as sci-fi. So the premise is essentially that it is set in a sort of future place. It's sort of a thriller. So the idea is that this character, Howard Silk, is sort of a everyman bureaucrat working somewhere in Eastern Europe. He's an American. He discovers that there's a secret inside the agency, and it turns out that there is a parallel dimension. And through that, Howard ends up, through this pilot episode, meeting his counterpart, who is the opposite of him and is, the much more aggressive. So we have J.K. Simmons playing off J.K. Simmons in this sort of sci-fi mirror universe kind of way. Yeah, so I have not had a chance to check it out. The first episode was directed by Morton Tildum. Director of Imitation Game, which came out, the movie, Benedict Cumberbatch movie from a couple of years ago, was nominated for an Oscar. Morton Tildum was nominated for an Oscar for Best Director. So they put some big money into this. It got a immediate 2-season order at Starz. It was shopped around. It was Netflix was interested, HBO, all the usual people were interested, Amazon. But apparently Starz were the ones who stepped up and said, we like the idea so much, and J.K. Simmons being attached so much, we'll give you 20 episodes order. So
nice.
It's in it. And after listening to this interview and him talk about it and why he got involved and what it's about, I'm really kind of curious. So we need to pick a new show. We got 2 more weeks of Star Trek. We need to pick a show we can all get on board,
Yeah. Come on, Rick and Morty. Come on, Rick.
I'm trying to remember here. I think I've seen commercials for this now that you described it, where he's the guy who plays J. Jonah Jameson the Farmers Insurance commercial guy.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And most notably for winning an Oscar a couple of years ago for Whiplash.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Minor detail there.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is his most famous role, I think, and even in spite of winning an Oscar a couple of years, his famous his most famous role is still playing Oz, right? He was the main villain in HBO's prison series Oz, which is, as they pointed out in this it's a great interview on the Bill Simmons podcast. I recommend you listen to it if you like J.K. Simmons. They talk about Oz and sort of how it gets lost in that sort of prestige television landscape. Everybody thinks about The Wire and Breaking Bad, Mad Men. But if you go back a little further, Oz was really the one that sort of started breaking that barrier down of how
safe mold,
big and smart and scary and intense you could be on cable television. Like, that was groundbreaking television at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was Australian, wasn't it?
No, I think it's a different Oz.
Oh, okay, different Oz. Okay, all right.
Oz. I would just like to say for the record that J.K. Simmons, the J is for Jonathan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Jonathan Kimball Simmons.
That's all good. Okay, well, so listen, we got to run. So, hey, Jaime, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where will they look?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right, and Jonathan, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where will they look?
I'm on Twitter as @Tim. No, that's somebody else. I'm on Twitter as @JPK News.
That was a wise guy. So I was going to announce, but now maybe I've changed my mind. No, I'm kidding. So if you want to find out more about your hosts, you can tune into the latest episode of Roundabout Creative Chaos, episode 102, starring JPK himself, Jonathan Kuline, and as the guest and in the hot seat. And then if you go back to episode number 89, you had Jaime Lopez Jr. in the hot seat, and who answers the immortal question, boxers or briefs. And,
I'm glad I didn't get that question. That's good.
Is that not part of the rotation anymore?
No,
is that not the 15th question anymore, Tim?
We actually do. We've asked a few people that one since then.
But. They asked me ribbed or unribbed. I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I said I like ribs. I didn't know what they were talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either. Don't remember that question at all. And if you go way back in the Wayback Machine to episode 48, not even in the ones, but episode 48, I was a guest on that show. And then, about 4 episodes after that, I became the co-host. Anyway, so that's it for another week, and we'll see you guys in the future. But before we go, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is the way to find me. And so, yeah, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us out on our website at spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
So, Jaime, I talked to Carol about this contentious Oscar for costume design.
For costume design, yes.
Because as I explained it after on the More Than Just Code show, I explained to Jaime that Carol is in fact a costume maker and milliner and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I asked her to I said, hey, can you make a comment on? And I wanted her to listen to Jaime's piece that he said on there. And I had another friend who's also a costume maker, and I asked her to listen, but neither one of them, I guess they don't listen to podcasts. So anyway, I go upstairs just before the taping here, and Carol's been sitting there for half an hour doing research on how to answer this question. So that should give you an idea of how much work goes into costume design. So she points out that, okay, the nominees are Phantom Thread, which is basically clothing from the 1950s. The Shape of Water is from the early 60s, so during the Cold War. Darkest Hour is World War II, as you mentioned last week. Victoria and Abdul is from 1887. Beauty and the Beast is using 19th century French costume, and Wonder Woman is from the 1920s, 1918 specifically, right? So all of those are period pieces. In which case, and she said that of the like the work that goes into costume design often takes twice as long as any other thing in movies except for making the sets, right? And if she pointed out that even in the movie Star Wars, when they were filming in the desert, there was in Tunisia, there was a sandstorm which blew away all the tents and blew away all the costumes, so all that work had to be done again, right? So a lot of times with these people, and the way they build these costumes, I know this for a fact, is because I've lived with it for years, is they
you and me both, brother, you and me both.
In the movies, well, the reason Jonathan reads comic books is because his mother used to go fabric shopping and park him on the curb before as she went into the store. And I can tell you, when she goes into a fabric store, you could bring a DVD and watch an entire movie, maybe two, in the time it takes her to go through a store looking for fabrics and buttons and zippers and what have you. But anyway, the amount of work that goes into building these costumes, they don't just like go to the rack and buy a bunch of things. They actually hand make most of the costumes that they do. So they'll dye the fabrics. They'll get a whole bunch of people to hand stitch all the suits, because back in the day when as you pointed out with Winston Churchill's time during World War II. Let's not push it too far. World War II.
Spoilers.
I know.
What do you know?
They would have made them. They would have used traditional process to make those costumes. And it's kind of funny because I went to the Star Wars exhibit in your hometown of Seattle back in like 2011, I guess. It was 2011. And looking at the costumes, I took pictures of the costumes for Carol specifically because, like, there's one thing where one of the snowtroopers costumes was there, and I always look at people going to, and I think I've talked about this on the show before and on More Than Just Code, but when I go to like Comic Cons and things like that, I've been to Fan Expo here in Toronto. I've never really been to anything bigger than that, but all of the costumes kind of look homemade. But then again, all the costumes that they used in Star Wars were homemade too. Like they just went to the hardware store and bought a whole bunch of white, workman gloves and shoved them on these guys, and that was what the snowtroopers had on their hands, right? Or they'd have hockey gloves for in a lot of sci-fi movies, that kind of stuff, right? So all those what's his name, Sean Connery sci-fi movies, wearing hockey equipment as space gear. By the way, just I don't know if anybody here is a fan of The Walking Dead, but I laugh every time I see the armor that they wear in The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
because it's basically road hockey gear, which has absolutely no protection whatsoever, and yet these people are running around with this stuff on as if it's protecting them somehow, right? So those of us Canadians who play hockey see right through that. But anyway, my point is that it takes a ton of time and a ton of effort and a lot of research to put together the costumes. So the people who do win the Trisha Bigger, is it Trisha Bigger? What's her name again, Jonathan?
Is that a Bigger or Biggers?
Biggers, yeah, one of those two. Or those people, they put a lot of effort into these things, right? So hand sewing.
Yeah, so I wasn't trying to. So I wasn't trying to downplay the effort that goes into it, and I really apologize that it came across, because obviously there's a lot of work that goes into it. I think my contention was more like, let me give you an example, right? So in 1997, Titanic won Best Picture, right? Yeah. So if I made a literal shot-for-shot remake of Titanic with just, I can't get Leonardo DiCaprio, so I get somebody who looks really close to them, right? I do all that sort of stuff. Would I then win Best Picture in 2018?
Probably not.
Right? We like, what was the point of this? Like, this is exactly the same movie. It's like, well, yeah, but it took a lot of effort, dude. Like, obviously, it took James Cameron and company a whole lot of effort. It would take me a lot of effort to do that too.
Yeah,
like that was my contention. That like a lot of the other ones are like, this is a good composer, but like that stuff is derivative from even their own material. Right?
Well, it's funny because I did ask her. I said, why wouldn't Blade Runner be nominated? Because Blade Runner, they had all the sort of futuristic clothing, like Kay's the main character. His long coat has a big collar that he wears around his face to protect him from the nasty atmosphere and stuff like that. Like,
very anime inspired, that jacket.
Yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, there was a lot of costume work that went into that.
Okay, but Harrison Ford wore a freaking t-shirt for the entire third act of that film.
Yeah, but and he's like in that commercial where like the guy shows up for a date with a wrinkly t-shirt on.
Yeah,
but I mean,
he's got bacon neck.
Yeah, but I mean, like, again, like why wouldn't that, or you look at something like Fifth Element, that had a lot of work into it, but those things weren't nominated at the time. Carol says most of the time they go for period piece, kind of like that's the kind of way that the Oscars just goes. They have they have this myopic view of what costume work is. Like you can dress 5,000 extras as Elizabethan costume. Ta-da! You just won the Academy Award, right? Sort of thing, right?
Right. So it's more traditionalist sort of thing, right? Where like
it's kind of like
Lord of the Rings will get it for like, holy smokes, every one of these orcs has a completely different sword, sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's something again, like something like fantasy and sci-fi. They'll get nominated for special effects or whatever, but they won't get cinematography or notwithstanding this year because I think Blade Runner got that right or is voted for that one. But they won't go into the costumes or whatever, right? So
may I run down the list of best costume winners for the last few years for you?
If you have
give us like 5. Okay, 5 is good because it gives us a trend for the last half decade.
So last year was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which was a 1920s period piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
The year before was Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay,
so let's give them a little props for that one.
All right.
Mm-hmm. The Grand Budapest Hotel the year previous, that was also a period piece. The Great Gatsby, also a period piece. Anna Karenina, also a period piece. The Artist, also a period piece. Alice in Wonderland, also a period piece. Now, I think as we talked about, the Oscars overall have biases in every category. You see it across the board. So there are movies that are Oscar movies. 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri is an Oscar movie. It's made for the people who vote for those types of movies.
Yeah.
That category, I think most people don't have it really on their radar, but I think the people who vote for it are still in that old Oscar mentality of they know what goes into it. They are, the people who create this work, so they understand, the voting bloc understands the complexity of, oh my God, how long it must have taken to make those period French dresses for the big ballroom dance scene in Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
So for them, they have an appreciation for that perhaps, as you say, most people don't. That being said, I think you're right. I think there's space in that for, things like Mad Max Fury Road, where that takes some imagination.
Yep.
You can't just refer to, old paintings, portraits, photographs, patterns that have existed. You really got to put something in there. So maybe it's, I don't know. I wonder if we're going to see any kind of changing of the guard in that category. I mean, this year, you're right. Like everything that was nominated is a period piece. And if you look through, I was just calling out the winners, but if you look through all the nominees for everything over the last decade, there are like 5 modern movies over a decade. Everything else is a period thing. Everything else could be based off of contemporary clothing from a certain period in time. There's 3, 4 over the last decade. It seems very deeply entrenched.
Yeah, well, hopefully this is the year that things start to change. So who knows?
Well, I mean, this year nothing's going to change because, as you said, all 4 of those.
I meant in this category. I'm talking about other categories. Things are changing.
Well,
at least they've seen the pendulum is swinging a little bit. One way. We'll see if it stays that way.
Yeah,
for any length of time. Anyway, you got to run because we have to do our bio break and then start the next show.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time. Yep.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.